Now, after watching Made in Abyss Season 2, there is a prevailing question that needs to be answered. Is Wazukyan a hero or a villain? Throughout the season, we're shown Wazukyan doing some pretty questionable things, but were these for the greater good? Let's find out. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for similar content in the future. Let's get straight into it. Now, first things first, who is Wazukyan? Wazukyan was the leader of the Ganja troops. He is the one who gathered all of these essentially suicide members to go and try to reach the Golden City. In the current times of Made in Abyss's second season, he is also one of the 3 sages of the village, the leaders of the village, the protectors of the village. Now, one of the first things that's made clear about Wazukyan is that he's willing to do absolutely, and I mean absolutely anything to achieve his goal. Anything. Even if it requires sacrificing a child, even if it requires everybody in his group dying, he will do anything to achieve his goal of reaching the Golden City and getting further, descending further into the abyss. And once they got to the 6th layer, this is when we truly see Wazukyan's motives. You know, he was talked about being this prophet, being someone who will achieve his goal no matter what. And this is where everything comes to fruition. Because unfortunately, the Ganja corpse contracts this illness from the water. And this causes everybody in their crew to go sick and start dying. Now, in order to save everybody in this crew, what does Wazukyan do? He manipulates or forces Uyak to give the Cradle of Desire to Urumui. And what this Cradle of Desire is a wish-granting egg that grants wishes. The only problem being is it's only effective on children because they're more pure. This is why the egg is given to Urumui. And this causes an absolute spectacle, to say the least, because what happened to Urumui was something that should never ever happen to a child. But even more so than that, Wazukyan took some steps here, and this is where the contention about him being a hero or a villain comes into play. Because in order to save his crew here, since they're running out of food, they have nothing to eat, everybody's falling ill, they have nothing to drink, everybody's dying, what he does is he takes offspring from Urumui. Yes, offspring from Urumui, and feeds it to the other members in the Ganja crew in order to save their lives. Now, some people will say this is heroic. I personally believe that there's some things that you shouldn't do, right? And one of the things you shouldn't do is use children like this. I would have much rather taken the route of, let's say, everybody dies than have to resort to using children as a means of survival, putting Urumui through this constant, consistent cycle of pure despair. I mean, we see her transform into this monster, and it only gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, this is something that's horrific, and Wazukyan most definitely contributed to this. Now, something to point out about Wazukyan is that he is very nonchalant. Even while he is cutting up Urumui's children, he is nonchalant about it. I mean, he even goes to lengths to ask Uyak if she wants to participate in this act. At some point, we have to recognize that this man has some devious intentions, right? You can have the intention of saving the crew, yes, although I firmly believe that the reason he wanted to do this in the first place was that so he could get closer to his dream, not so much that he cared about the crew. But when you go to the lengths of, let's say, tormenting other people just for the sake of having fun, then it comes into question whether you're actually a psychopath or whether you're actually a sadist. But if this wasn't enough, after giving Urumui one Cradle of Desire and seeing this absolute monstrosity that she transformed into, which would break any regular person and even those who are mentally strong, because once again, this is a child. But moving on, Wazukyan gave Urumui another Cradle of Desire because it was not enough to save everybody in the Ganja corpse. He still needed to achieve his dream, and in order to do that, he hoped for another miracle from Urumui. Now, after all of this, of course, we know Urumui turns into this even greater monstrosity, this huge wall, and then leads all of the villagers to this safe zone where then Bailiff goes into Urumui and changes his form because he is so overwhelmed by guilt. And Wazukyan, after seeing all of this, just willy-nilly says, yeah, everybody, let's go in. Like, this guy is willing to give up absolutely anything. He is willing to give up his humanity. If the god of the underworld, Hades, Lucifer, came to Wazukyan and offered him great power for a huge sacrifice, you better be damned he's taking that within a heartbeat. Now, if you thought everything before this could be considered heroic by him, because even though he probably has not the greatest intentions with actually caring enough to save the crew, but instead achieving his goal, at least he went to the lengths to save the crew. That could be considered heroic. This is where it kind of goes down, because when Vueko is on the cliff threatening to kill herself, Wazukyan stops her, and he stops her because he needs to use her in the future. And in order to use her, he chains her up. He saves her life, and then he chains her up, and he does some very questionable things to her. I mean, it's not shown completely in the anime, but let's just say it has been hinted that he did some very questionable things to her, such as stripping her down naked and possibly touching her a bit. Now, I don't know where the heroic aspect comes in here, because all I can see is this man is just devious. I mean, throughout the series, he's said so many different devious things, right? Regardless of the situation. There's so many instances where he's willing to make a joke out of the situation. Now, I already see the people in the comments saying that's just his way of coping with things. No, it is not. That is not his way of coping with things. That is his way of making light of the situation. This guy is a menace all around. I mean, in no way is he heroic. We need to stop this, okay? I've seen the comments. I've seen people talking about how he's heroic, how he's a hero, all of this. You have to realize this guy gets joy from that situation. He may have saved everybody, but the guy is enjoying all of it, even in the present day. It's hinted that if he has to use Riko, he will use Riko. And he's seen as a threat to everybody who's good-hearted. I mean, these are significant red flags. He even continues this trend of using Vueko in the present day. I mean, the way he grabbed Vueko away and essentially manhandled her to do whatever he wants just shows his intentions, right? His intentions are to continue on his dream, and he'll do whatever he has to in order to achieve that. In fact, the reason that the monsters even got in to the village to begin with is because of Wazukyan. He is the one that caused this. Let's not forget, he created a bridge to the village, which ultimately caused these destructive 6-layer creatures to cause havoc. Now, ultimately, Wazukyan ended up dying. Why did he end up dying? Due to a heroic act. He used his body to shield the inhabitants of the village from the Iron Rain. Now, I believe this is once again something selfish. Maybe he predicted that he would live after this, but unfortunately, he ended up dying. Wazukyan was definitely a questionable character in Made in Abyss. It makes you wonder if he didn't take some of the actions he had taken, like giving Urumui a second wish-granting egg and instigating some situations, then maybe a lot of this chaos would have never happened. So even though he did save people and help them, if he wouldn't have taken steps to try to achieve his dream to begin with, these chaos probably wouldn't have never happened to begin with. What do you think? Is Wazukyan a hero or a villain? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for similar content in the future. I will see you in the next video.